video, we will talk about what is the Doomsday-gletsjer from Antarctica. So make sure to watch the full video. The Thwaites Glacier is a huge ice mass the size of Great Britain located in West Antarctica. In recent years, scientists have seen that something is about to happen to the glacier. Large cracks have opened in the ice shelf, which is the floating extension of the glacier. At the same time, warm ocean water is attacking an underwater zone, where several hundred meters of ice rest on bedrock. The Thwaites Glacier is the area in Antarctica that is changing the most, according to the US-British research collaborative the International Thwaites Glacier Collaboration. The glacier loses 50 billion tons of ice annually. In a new study in Nature Geoscience, researchers have found evidence on the seabed that tell them what has happened to the glacier in earlier times. It turns out that it has also retreated rapidly in the past. Doomsday-gletsjer? The Thwaites Glacier is also called the Doomsday-gletsjer, after the title of an article that appeared in Rolling Stone magazine in 2017. The nickname comes from the fact that if the glacier collapses, it will raise the sea level by a considerable amount. If the entire glacier melts, that alone will raise the sea level by 65 centimeters. This could destabilize the ice in the rest of West Antarctica, which could result in up to 3.3 meters of sea level rise. If that happens, the world's coastlines will be changed radically. Ice loss from the glacier may accelerate within a few decades. But a possible collapse of the glacier and the surrounding ice will take several centuries, according to an article from CIRES that was published by the international team that is studying the glacier. These scientists don't use the term Doomsday-gletsjer, because it sends the message that this disaster will happen suddenly and is inevitable, which is not the case. Nevertheless, scientists are trying to learn more about how the glacier will change in the future and how much the Thwaites will contribute to sea level rise. A wild card. The Thwaites now accounts for 4% of all annual sea level rise. This contribution may increase in the future. Thwaites is one of the big wild cards when it comes to sea level in the future, says Ellen Dorelius, a professor of oceanography at the University of Bergen in the Bjerknes Center for Climate Research. She has been on several trips to Antarctica to study the ice retreating slowly towards the shore. Much of the bedrock in West Antarctica lies below sea level. The ice sheet rests on what was once the seafloor, according to an article in The Conversation. The bedrock on which Thwaites is located is also below sea level. Ice that is several hundred meters thick meets seawater where the glacier flows into the Amundsen Sea. The ice in Antarctica is not completely fixed and stagnant. It is quite plastic, Katrine Husum said to ScienceNorway.no. Husum is a researcher at the Norwegian Polar Institute. As with mountain glaciers, glacial ice slowly creeps downwards from the highest zones and towards the coast. You have snow that falls on it in the winter and remains. In the summer, some of it melts away, says Husum. Snow piles up on the glaciers and turns into more ice. Down at the coast, icebergs break off where the glacier meets the sea. The glacier also melts or is melted from the underside by seawater, which carries heat with it. In some places in Antarctica, this delicate dance is out of balance. More ice is lost than is added. Cracking up. Research in recent years has shown that the Thwaites Glacier is changing in several ways. The ice shelf itself is about to crack and collapse. Antarctica is a continent with a very thick ice cap, which is slowly sliding out towards the coast. At some point the sea becomes so deep or the ice so thin that it can float. Then we call it an ice shelf, says Professor Dorelius from the Bjerknes Center. Ice shelves can be several hundred meters thick, most of which is underwater. They extend from the continent like the brim of a hat. Large cracks have appeared in the Thwaites Glacier's ice shelf. At a press conference in 2021, scientists from the International Thwaites Glacier Collaboration said that it is likely that the shelf will collapse within 5 to 10 years. In that case, it would not be the first time it has happened in Antarctica. The break releases. In 2002, an ice shelf called Larsen B collapsed within 3 weeks. Its little brother, Larsen A, disintegrated in 1995. Other ice shelves, such as the Larsen C and the Wilkins, have also lost large chunks. All were located on the Antarctic Peninsula in West Antarctica, where the warming is strongest. In total, 6.5 trillion tons of ice have been lost from ice shelves in Antarctica since the 1990s. When an ice shelf thins and breaks up, it does not cause sea level to rise, since the ice is already floating on the ocean. It's the same as when you have an ice cube in a glass of Coca-Cola. When the ice cube melts, it doesn't matter. The level in the glass remains the same, Dorelius said. Ice shelves that break up can still play a role in determining how large the sea level rise will be. Ice shelves support and slow down the glaciers. As they disappear, ice in the interior of Antarctica may begin to flow out faster. If the ice that is on the land moves faster towards the sea, then the sea will rise, Dorelius said. This happened after the Larsen B shelf collapsed. Glaciers that were behind it began to flow 8 times faster towards the sea. Water penetrates under the foot of the glacier. The ice shelf thickens and slopes towards the glacier where it rests on the bedrock underwater. The point where the ice is in contact with the bedrock is called the grounding line. Water, which carries heat, flows under the ice shelf and eats away at the glacier from below. Scientists have measured the temperature at the grounding line of Thwaites. They found that the water here remains a couple of degrees above freezing, which is more than enough to eat away at the ice. Then the ice shelf melts quickly from the underside, and the grounding line slowly migrates back towards the continent, Dorelius said. This means that the zone where the glacier is on solid ground constantly retreats backwards. The glacier is retreating backwards several hundred meters a year. It has retreated 14 kilometers since 1992. On top of a hill. One of the scary things about Thwaites is that the bedrock beneath the glacier deepens towards the continent. The bedrock slopes towards the land. Think of it as if the glacier is on top of a hill, the Norwegian Polar Institute's Husum said. If it suddenly slips and slides down, then that's a problem because the ice loss can be accelerated, she said. As warmer water melts the glacier from below and moves the grounding line backwards, thicker and thicker ice will be lifted from the substrate and could break off. Ice that was on land also ends up in the sea, as explained in a video from the Thwaites collaboration. The grounding line is now approximately 600 meters below sea level, Dorelius said. Further south, towards the continent, the ice is resting on bedrock that is 1,200 meters below sea level. One can imagine Thwaites as a giant soup bowl filled with ice, as the Rolling Stone article described it. If the grounding line moves backwards in the basin, things can happen quite quickly, then much of the glacier can become an ice shelf, Dorelius said. Have taken pictures of the seabed. There are different models for how fast it can go. The processes at the grounding line are not fully understood, Husum said. Consequently, she's excited about the new study in Nature Geoscience, which shows how the glacier has reacted in the past. What do you think of our video? Let me know in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that like button. Also subscribe to our channel before you go. Thank you for watching.